from the internet consciousness. Well, while that sorts itself out, which usually it does, I'm just gonna work on stuff. We're back. This is now officially an undead stream, keeping in accordance with the holiday season. Having tech problems on other streams as well. Maybe the internet's just having a bad day. So for anyone who missed it, 3D prints. I unboxed that 3D printer on our last stream. I made some stuff, a couple failures. Here's an example of a failure. That character should have a face. And then here he is with a face. So you know faces are possible on this 3D printer. And so I'm playing with how big I can get my print. And I got to this size pretty handily. I was pretty happy about that. And then I tried a much bigger size to see, just like push the limits of it. And this is where these failures have come into play. So this one, you can see how, this is supposed to be a circle, but it's like this weird oval right here. So this is actually a spray paint can that the character holds in his prehensile beard, right? You can see here it's all stretched out, and that's because I set the number of layers to different than the number of, than the distance that the plate moves every layer. So it got stretched out. So then I fixed that, and I was getting it at the proper proportion, you can see back there, but then I just found out that there was a leak in this film. It's called an FEP. And that leaked onto it. You know what? 3D printers are so obnoxious. If you're getting into them, just know what you're getting into. It's going to be obnoxious. Anne's internet was having issues too. Yeah, I've been bouncing from thing to thing all day today. It's been one of those weeks where I just have to get up earlier and earlier every day, and it's wearing on me for sure. And then the meeting that I always have preceding coming onto this stream went long, and so I was trying to scramble to get everything set up down here, and then I had to reset my computer, and this computer takes forever to reset, and then couldn't find the stuff I was looking for. You know, it's just one of those days. As the Shakespeare of our time once wrote. All these little pock marks, for those of you who aren't in the know on what 3D printing process is like, these are from the scaffolding. So when it's printed, it has all these itty bitty posts kind of holding it up and holding it stable. And when you pop them off, sometimes they will leave these little pock marks. That's one of those things where there's a trade-off. The deeper these are embedded into your sculpture as it's printing, the more stable it is and the less likely it's going to be to break off or have a print failure. The downside is that then when they pop off, they often get these little chips that you then have to clean up. So you know, I'm still getting to know this new printer and the settings that are best for it and for the particular resin that I'm using, etc., etc. It's more an art than a science. And this is a resin that I haven't used a ton before. A bunch of it came, I got a kit that, you know, I was able to pay for the slightly nicer version that came with a whole bunch more resin, which is good because I've ended up wasting a ton of it on these giant failed prints back here, which, man, like each of those prints is probably about a bottle of this stuff, and a bottle of this stuff is somewhere between $40 and $50. So it's not been a cheap experience so far. The support nubs and marks, yep. So I'm going to be experimenting with a couple different methods for filling these. Starting out with just a pretty rough sand to get everything, at least all the big nubby chunks down a little bit. Arguably not super necessary since I'm going to have to go back and re-sand after I've got all the potholes filled. But it's easier to kind of smooth out where the potholes need to be filled if you don't have all the little nubs as well. In fact, since this is kind of a day for experimenting and I have the luxury of having two different models, let me go ahead and record this for my video. I might as well do a little test here, so just so everyone is aware of what's going on here. We've got these all characters are from the game Blanco's Block Party. It's my day job working on this game, and this character, roughly modeled after me, is the Foreman, and the Foreman is in charge of build mode in Blanco's Block Party. So I just really wanted to have my own little version of him, so I've been working on how to 3D print him well. Boy, this one doesn't want to fit in, and I'm wondering if it's because I did these two prints at two different resolutions. You can set the number of layers that it gets printed at and how much the bed moves up as it goes. So you can see here the print lines. Come on, you do it. Yeah. So it's very clear, like how far the bed moves up for every layer, and then you could further see those little oval sort of lines, and that's the resolution of the, let's see, on the X and the Y, the Z going up and down, because he was like on the plate kind of like this, laying down at a 45-degree angle. So that, the Z resolution can be adjusted to be finer, but the X and Y, that's limited by the number of pixels on your screen. Now for some reason, I cannot get a head to fit in this neck hole, either of these heads. And I thought it might be because one of them was done at the higher resolution. No wait, this one goes in. Okay, maybe the problem is the head, not the body. Yeah, okay. So I'm trying to make sure that I keep the different ones matched up. I'm pretty sure this is the higher resolution one. They both had issues around here. Whenever you see a line like that, it's usually because as it was printing and coming up off of the bed, there's suction that's created, and I could have done more to put holes in there so that to relieve that suction pressure. So that makes this machine kind of judder a little bit as it goes up, and then that's how you end up with those kind of lines. All stuff that I'm in the process of learning my way through right now. Anyway, also, when building these things on the computer, if you're going to make a part that fits together, like this neck needs to fit into the neck hole, it's always good to make the part that needs to fit in a little itty bitty bit smaller. I just did like a regular Boolean operation, which is where it kind of carves out in the 3D model the shape of the neck hole. But that makes it like absolutely precise. There's no room for, no wiggle room. And so if the resolution of your printer is a little rougher or whatever, then you can end up with these issues where it just doesn't It's too tight a fit. But let's see, I started talking about how I have these two different copies that are essentially the same. You know, there's different Z resolutions, but other than that, and that's pretty subtle. Instead of 0.5 nanometers or however it's measured, it's 0.3. So it's subtle. It makes it take a lot longer, gives you a little bit cleaner print. And I just wanted to see if the difference was significant enough to, you know, do that, basically. Another option is I could use a drill on this neck hole, but most 3D print resin does not drill well. It likes to shatter and chip like fine china. Tiamat, do you print your own 3D prints, or are you just painting prints that have been done by others? You should probably just get a more aggressive sander here, but often it's better to kind of sneak up on the size you want rather than go too far, because if you go too far, then rebuilding it back up is a pain. I don't know which is more painful, taking the time to go over it over and over and over again, or the risk of going too far. Heard a little bit of a crack as I was pressing it in. I think it's pushing on the side too much. Buy it off Etsy? Okay. I've never bought a 3D print. Oh no, that's not true. I have bought a 3D print from someone before, but it was a FDM print, not a resin print. I'm surprised they don't clean them up, but then I guess I'm not surprised because that's where a lot of the work comes in. Might actually just have a coarser grit. Let me just get a regular old piece of sandpaper. This should go a lot faster. Okay, yeah, so some shops clean them up and others don't. Makes sense. Oops. Oh, crap. Oh, ones that are wet and soft, yeah, those you can cure them with a UV light, but yeah, you should that should definitely be done before sent out to a customer, because the printing process uses UV light to cure each layer, but then afterwards you want to cure the whole thing by basically putting it in a bath of UV light. I'm not sure why post-curing is so necessary. It seems like the initial process would be enough, but apparently not. Oh, right, okay, so here's what I was thinking. I'm gonna take these two and do two different things with them. On this one, I'm sanding down the nubs before I do the filling process. On this one, I'm gonna leave all the nubs, do the filling process, and then sand. And see, maybe that'll save me a step in the future and I just won't have to, you know, I'm just learning what's the most efficient way to do this. I mentioned that I'm going to try a couple different things for filler. I've never done just like sat down and done a side-by-side experiment for what's going to work best, so I figure now is a good time to do that. Sadly, I can't find the putty filler that I recently purchased because I'm still in the process of moving 2.5 months later. But I do have several other options. You know what? Some of these areas are a little tricky to get into. That's where it's nice to have something like this. Wonder Cutter. Doo-doo-doo. So this is a little sonic knife, essentially. It's connected to a thing, and it just vibrates the blade super duper pooper fast, I think is the scientific way of describing that. Alright, so turn it on, and come on. Do a thing. No? What am I doing wrong? Maybe I don't want the battery to be turned on. Okay, turned on. Seems like an important first step. Press the button. And then beep boop. That's what I get. Do I have to hold it? It's been a while since I've used this, obviously. And I only used it a little bit, but I do not believe... Oh no, it is working. Okay, it's such a fine vibration, I didn't even realize it was doing a thing. Okay, so. Well, let's look at how we can use this on little undercut areas where it's too hard to get a little sandy thing in there because it'll mess up other things. Oh my god, camera is just not being my friend today. Okay. Cannot get the sandy thing in, therefore going in with this. Okay, still in focus. Most of them little nubs off. Also areas where there's a bit of a bump like this where it goes over two areas. So there's like this beard area and this neck area, and this part unfortunately is like right in the middle. So just chipping it off, I would have to like re-sculpt over that area if I don't take it off carefully. Sounds kind of like a really awful little dental tool sometimes. Hold this, yeah, you can really see the lines, the layer lines in that part here. This is sort of a beginner level 3D print to clean up because it has so many just very smooth surfaces. It's not like a lot of minis and stuff where it's just like, you know, detail piled on detail. Electric hand drill on all your minis to clean them up. Yeah, the knife is definitely way better at like little detail than something like a Dremel tool or the like. However, it's also crazy expensive. Maybe not crazy expensive. Yeah, let's go with crazy expensive as opposed to stupid expensive. I want to say it was somewhere between $300 and $400. So it's definitely one of those things where I had to make a tough calculation and be like, how many hours do I think this thing's going to actually save me over the course of the product's life? And is it worth hundreds of dollars? So I calculate out what I consider my time to be worth. You know, like I typically, when I do custom work, the base rate is about $50 an hour. So I have to say, okay, if this is going to save me, I don't know, 10 hours, then totally worth it. And my guess is that it would, so that's why I ended up getting it. Really see the layer lines there. Looks like the rings of Saturn. And that's where the layer resolution is significantly, well, not significantly, but fairly different between these two. Let me sand this one down so you can kind of compare. Actually, the layers might be so fine that they just sand out way easier. But yeah, okay. So there you can definitely see a difference between the 0.5 and the 0.3. So to me, that means it's definitely worth it for the extra time it takes to print the finer resolution, because it means I'm spending less time in sanding and cleanup afterwards. The amount of time it takes would be a different calculation if I were making these to sell and there was, like, you know, a demand on the other side of the pipeline, you know, for a bunch of these, but that's not the case for me. thing about these little fingernail type guys is they can be cut up into custom shapes. Just having a soundboard with someone saying beep boop at random intervals might be a worthy purchase. I wonder if this being in the background is making my autofocus be extra naughty. Sadly, on both of my prints, the little nozzle broke off. As you can see, there's like this itty bitty little neck that holds it on, so I'm not surprised at all. And you know, it was embedded onto the matrix. What is the thing I'm thinking of? It's not called a matrix. It is kind of a matrix, but that's not what it's called. Scaffolding. Oh, wow, I got extra beep boops. I wonder if it's just telling me it's going to auto shut off. Free bonus beep boops. Yep. There it goes. It's like, I'm done with you, buddy. You're ignoring me. I'm not sure why it needs to do that when it's plugged in. I understand why it would do that if it's in battery mode, but whatever. I'm gonna have to sand down this area when I fill in this hole anyway, so it's not working too hard on it. just for consistency's sake, I figure I might as well do a quick pass over the whole surface. Coincidentally, this is exactly how I do my hair in the morning. Successfully lost focus again. Son of a gun. Tell you what, let's try this. What if I do this? Try to unfocus now, camera. Instead, I just have to deal with constantly being out of frame and having the shadow of the camera over my work. I should just hire a stream cameraman, camera person. Doesn't have to be a man. Heck, it could be a camera dog for all I care. As long as they can keep it in frame and in focus. That's what's important. Yeah, we definitely have to make sure we position the camera somewhere on the camera dog where they cannot slobber on it. Like, so this thing has like this little sheath that you insert the knife into when you're not using it so as to not damage it, and it keeps booping. Yeah, when I put it in, it's like I'm worried it's hitting the edge there and then just being permanently on. How do I sheathe this thing without it being on? Huh. some more. Good place for a sponge rather than here's our color chart. Okay, so brown or green are what I want. Let's try that. Do the floss here real quick. Do not try this at home. I do not recommend this tool for personal grooming. Couple other little bumps there in a crease. Do not want bumps in a crease. so confused. What am I doing wrong? This has to be able to go into there without turning on. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is a fine point. This is almost a fine point. After there's no more visible print lines, it'll be a fine point. At which to start our filling test. So, as a reminder, we've got two versions. One I have not done a first pass of sanding on, and the other I have, and we're going to see which does better. We're going to use the same gap filler for both of these bottom parts, and then we'll do the same thing for both of the heads, but with different gap fillers to see if, or sorry, same gap fillers, but a different gap filler, same for head, different one, same for body. Did any of that make, I don't know if that made sense. We'll see. Okay, I'm going to try this solution first. I don't know if it's going to work, but spackling, right? This is made for filling holes in drywall, like when you put a nail in the wall and you want to fill that hole. That's what this stuff is for. If it works, this would be amazing because it's incredibly cheap, incredibly plentiful. My concern is that it's, you'll see. You'll see what my concern is. So, actually, let me record this part. So, one time. One more time. One of the problems is that it's going to want to stick to my finger more than it's going to want to stick to the resin. But the nice thing is that it's very lightweight and sands very easily. So if after it's dry I'm able to sand it back and it doesn't pop out of the little holes that it's filling, then that's great because it's going to sand down super duper fast. Now, one of the problems is going to come in when it's like filling in. Oh my god. Focus. Alright, I'm just going to turn on manual focus and just count on always being right there. Okay, the problem being, like if I'm filling in an area, so I've got to come up with a solution for that. I want to fill in the pits, but not the actual sculpted detail. Now, one thing that might actually be great would be a little bit of water. One sec. Yeah, you missed your sponsorship opportunity. Don't use the competitor, the $400 Wonder Cutter, for your personal grooming. Use this thing instead. That won't kill you. So yeah, just doing this, I'm already seeing that I'm getting like a really rough surface, but again, this will sand down really darn fast, so I don't know that it matters if it starts out really rough. Areas where I don't like the buildup, I can just rinse it away, essentially. It's like it never happened. I would love it if I could apply this with a little brush instead of with my big fat finger. Make a little application brush out of this. Let's find out. Yeah, see, if it wants to stick to the brush more than stick to the surface, that's where you come into problems. But something like this little sandy nib. How does that work as a spatula? Maybe I just need to go to Spatula City. Spatula City. For all your spatula needs. Any UHF fans out there? For whatever reason, that's one of my favorite movies. I haven't seen UHF in years. Well, it's time to remedy that. Okay, well, I'm not going to spend a ton of time trying to get this to look good at this stage. I'm just going to see what happens if I put it on, because the whole point is to see, is this a quicker way to do gap filling? And if I have to sit here and futz with it for forever to get it to, you know, just be in exactly the right places, then I think the answer is no. But if I can just kind of slop it on and then sand it back, both of those steps done quickly, then it could be a contender. Just kind of curious of using it as a resolution layer filler as well, just like spreading it over pretty much the whole surface. That's kind of what primer can do for you. It depends on how big your gaps are, or your layer lines are, and where your layer lines are. If they're in like really strategically difficult places to get to, you kind of need a different process than if you're just smoothing over a big, wide, flat-ish area. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to leave it like that, just that sloppy, and see how that works. I know. And so I said what I was going to do is do it on both sides, the pre-finished and the not pre-finished with the same material, but I have enough doubts about this particular stuff that I'm going to change tacks right now. Instead, I'm going to try some Bondo. This stuff stinks to high heaven, but it sticks nicely, it sands nicely, and I've never tried it for this particular application before, so I'm just going to be curious how this ends up working for me. And apparently I'm going to need a what are those things called that you drive screws in with? Probably a screwdriver. But everything's... Oh, no, okay. I brute forced it. I did it. May have ripped all my fingernails out, but I did it. Okay. So right, you do bam, bam, bam. Does it say how? I mean, it's not a precise measurement. It's just like the more hardener you use, the faster it's going to kick. And I need something to mix it upon. Should have had all this set up from the beginning. I apologize. I can just use this little wood block for now. So we're just doing a little bit right now. Huh, manual focus does not let you use the little hold button thing. That is terrible. Oh look, I still do need a screwdriver. Wow. Okay. Screwdriver must be found now. That was too easy. That was almost so easy that it annoyed me that it was that easy to find that screwdriver. Okay. This stuff, you do not want it to touch your skin. No, sorry, Bob. Star stickies. Always takes me back to the Art Institute of Seattle in the industrial design shop. So I do not want a lot of this. It's probably more than enough. There. And we're going to want to use pretty itty bitty bit here. In fact, I'm going to put it off to the side so I don't accidentally mix in too much. I think that's about the right amount, but we'll find out. Worst case scenario is it hardens up on me faster than I expect and I just have to sand it down a little bit, or it's just wasted on this block. Having a flexible applicator would be good. I suppose just my fingers. Can do for now. Also, I guess using just a smaller kind of stick would be good. But yeah, I think I really need a little rubber applicator, which I believe I know where to find one of those. If I do this again, I'll grab that. I am seeing the downside to not having sanded this first is that it's harder to get a smooth application on here because it's my finger and my little spreader is catching on the little bumps that need to be sanded down. For those of you who don't know, this is an auto body filler. So when you get a ding in your car and take it to the shop, this is usually how they fix it. They fill it with this stuff and then sand it down and paint over it. I'm kind of shocked that this hasn't set up yet. It has not kicked. I'm still able to use it for longer than I thought I would be able to, which is nice. I think that means I either mixed in too little of the hardener cream or just the right amount. Let's hope it's the right amount. Thoughts and prayers for the amount that I mixed, please. got all this extra goop here. Use it to make the interior a little prettier. Since probably I want the head to be able to spin freely for posability, because why not? Now I think you can actually thin Bondo out. Might be with rubbing alcohol. That might be handy for doing the, like, just covering the surface to deal with the print lines. Recently saw someone use it to repair a garage door. Okay. I think this may be all I can apply in this pass. Actually starting to set up yet? No, still not quite. One of the cool things about Bondo is that for the first like 5 to 10 minutes after it starts to set, it's like a really nice rubbery consistency that can be sliced with knives, and I don't know that it can be sanded down at that point. I can't recall if that's something I've done, but I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside for now. And just keep an eye on this to see when it starts setting up so that I can do that slicing business. In the meantime, I'm wondering, oh yeah, I have this guy. How well it works to fix some of the little pinhole issues we got. I think it is finally starting to kick. You know, if I was just going to do one little spot touch up with it, I would have mixed in a lot more of the hardener to make it kick faster. But having more working time when you're dealing with all sorts of different areas on the sculpt, better to err on the side of too long a set time. Spreadable. Okay. Now as I'm carving it out, I'm getting little like chunky boogers instead of a gel. So that's a good sign. Chunky boogers are always a good sign. Except when you have kids. Alright, I got a big old hole on the top of my head I need to fill. Head like a hole, dark like his soul. That's probably not going to be a perfect fill, but it'll get it close enough to where one more little gap filler will take care of that. Okay, now we're going to set this aside. Yes. Let's see if this... Well, that's interesting. Stage I can kind of not really spreading it, but I can squash it. But it's also kind of wanting to tear when I do that, so that's not so good. Extra beep boops. seems like I think I'm coming to the conclusion that I would prefer to do the sanding, a first rough pass of sanding before doing this step. Just adds too much kind of complication to the mix of like, now I have to think about getting rid of nubs and filling holes. And I kind of thought it was a similar enough process where it'd be nice to do it all at once. But as I'm actually experiencing it, I'm changing my mind. Shaved yet? So this is the stage where you can carve it down super easy. So for about the next 5 to 10 minutes, I want to make sure that I've got all of the, like big chunks that I don't want to spend a lot of time sanding carved off at this point. What? Where are you deciding to sample? Wow. I am more and more convinced that the next time I get a substantial chunk of money, it's gonna have to go to a new camera, because this is just untenable. Yeah, and this is harder to slice off when I keep bumping into the little nubs that I haven't sanded down yet. Okay, well this was a good experiment, I feel like. I now have more information on best practices now than I did before. Good to test out theories, and it's good to recognize that a lot of times your tests are going to end up negative or failed, and that's actually a good thing, because if all of your tests end up working out great, it means you are not thinking creatively or outside of the box enough. Or maybe you're just an absolute genius. It could mean that too, I guess, but it's not how I interpret it. Yeah, see, like, there's a little gap right there that as I was slicing, it pulled out of that hole because it's all kind of one thin rubbery sheath. And so as I cut it, it's tearing and pulling it out of the gaps that it's supposed to be filling. So it needs to wait a little bit more before I do anything else on this. Let's see how this guy is doing. It's ready to be sanded? Probably not, but I'm going to see what happens. I just realized I have a heater sitting here right next to me. I should have put it next to the heater. Duh. But as expected, it's sanding very quickly and easily, hardly having to apply any pressure. Question is, as I'm sanding it down, is it going to stay in the little gaps that it's covering? If it is, then I should be seeing this sort of thing where I've got, see those 3 little white dots there? That's great. That means that it's sanding down to the resin, but keeping the filler in the gaps that it needs to be filling. And it's pretty fast and effortless so far. Just kind of buffing over it. So again, the biggest downside with this technique is that applying the, what is this called again? Spackling? Yes. Applying the spackling is super annoying, at least with any of the methods I've tried, with my big fat fingers, with the little makeup application brush. I might be able to get away with watering it down a little bit and using just like a paintbrush for it. I'm going to try that on my next experiment. But this is actually turning out more promising than I expected it would, so that's pretty cool. And you can feather it into the material around it really easily, like it's fading beautifully. You know, the ultimate test will be after you spray some primer over it. So I can't say definitively that this is good, but it's promising. Alright, and it looks like we're at 1:30, so let's go ahead and look for someone to raid and start closing out. As usual, I'll just play us out by continuing to do this quite repetitive task. In the meantime, please check out my social stuff. I'm on Instagram under Breath of Life Dev. I'm on YouTube under Josh Foreman, just to keep everyone confused. I'm on Twitch under Josh Foreman. And most of the other ones. I'm not on TikTok yet. My son keeps telling me I need to get onto TikTok. I'm sure I'll be there eventually. But yeah, I've got a lot of fun tutorials on YouTube. You should check them out. And that does it for me. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day or night.